Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where previously Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum continue their hapless misadventures. Platinum on her family journey with her bodyguards, and Diamond and Pearl on a trip to a comedy contest, enjoying a prize that they've won. No one any the wiser that the mix-up even happened, especially considering that everyone's capable in the areas the other expects they would be in. But our heroes have encountered Mars of Team Galactic, feeling power, and had a bit of a confrontation, and later encountered mysterious spooky goings-on at the mysterious old chateau. But after meeting Gardenia, Platinum is determined to continue her training and challenging gym leaders with her Piplup in order to build its confidence. And through said training, all three of our main character starters have evolved, right as they come within the sights of none other than the champion of the region, Cynthia. What'll happen next? Join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, it's Pokemon Adventures Diamond and Pearl / Platinum, Volume 2/31, depending on how you look at things. Nice little cover page with our freshly evolved starters all at their second level, which I don't really care that much for the second phases of their Pokemon. I think the only one that I'm actually even remotely interested in or thinks looks okay is Grottle. Sorry if that offends you, but I'm just telling it like it is. I do not care for the second four phases of these starters. But this time Diamond is front and center instead of Platinum. Alright, let's jump in. It's Chapter 10, or whatever. Ring Around the Roserade Part 2. Oh, and unlike in the finale of last volume, Cynthia actually has her Pokemon out, and we finally, after a whole volume of it not happening, get one of my favorite Pokemon of Generation 4, which is Garchomp. Let's actually say, I only like this Pokemon because Cynthia has it. Well, kinda. It also helps that it is a friggin' shark. Cynthia says, see, your three Pokemon evolve simultaneously. She tells them a Grottle, Trinplup, and Monferno. While the trio look on in bewilderment, Platinum says, who is the stranger who addresses us so familiarly? I know words good. Pearl says, how'd she know her Pokemon were about to evolve? Who is she? They whisper amongst themselves, and it is kind of weird that some random lady would just stop and start talking to him. Diamond says, I have an idea on how to get to know her better. Platinum questions how. Diamond says, we'll do our stand-up routine for her. Pearl says, you mean if she laughs, we can trust that she's nice? Diamond says, exactly. I love that is Diamond's way of solving everything. It's funny because Diamond tends to be so airheaded and forgets the routine half the time, and yet he's the one to go to that more so than Pearl, who's usually on top of things when it comes to the yucks. It shows they have an appreciation for comedy, but in different ways to a certain degree. But naturally, much to Cynthia's bewilderment, Pearl says, I think Diamond says, speaking of Pokemon, well, Pearl says, speaking of Pokemon, they battle at Pokemon gyms. Diamond says, they sure do. Pearl says, and there are all kinds of gym leaders. Diamond, wearing the Rourke mask, says, there sure are. We fought Rourke back in Orgbury. Pearl says, and now we're going to fight the gym leader of Eternia City. Diamond, now wearing the Gardenia mask, says, if we're going to fight Gardenia, we better be on our guard, huh? Good. That is. And then Diamond and Pearl look at Cynthia intently, and sure enough, Cynthia starts snickering, much to the bewilderment of her Pokemon. She says, Gardenia on our guard. Diamond and Pearl think to each other, she liked it. What a surprise. And Cynthia isn't stone cold or anything like that. She actually does like to have fun. She has a playful side to her that, sometimes doesn't really get the attention it probably deserves. Diamond then questions, was it really that funny? Cynthia says, yeah, it was a great routine. As she wipes a tear from her eyes, she says, I'm Cynthia. if you're really planning to do battle at the Eternia City Gym, I have some tips for you. Platinum says to the other, she seems nice. Diamond adds, and she's got a good sense of humor. Pearl then says, we're in luck. Let's ask her to coach us. They say, we'd love your help. And Cynthia says, good, let's get started then. Which is so interesting. So while naturally Diamond is off eating, Cynthia took off her jacket. It's funny too because I just looked at the concept art of Cynthia without her little shawl or overcoat kind of thing. It really took me off guard. I don't know why though, but it just was interesting to see her without it. So while Diamond is off eating with his Pokemon, Pearl overlooks Cynthia coaching Platinum's Prinplup. She says, first, you have to plan how to begin your attack. Well, Diamond says, we'll just sit here and enjoy our rice balls. But suddenly something happens to Diamond. He thinks, I got rice up my nose. Oh, he's choking a little. While Cynthia tells Prinplup, good, just stand a little straighter. Oh, suddenly Diamond accidentally spits out his rice onto Grottle, which shocks Prinplup. Prinplup fires a water shot. Pearl freaks out, saying, oh no, it's aimed right at that building. Cynthia tells her, it is called Spirit Tomb. For a second, I thought that was the attack it was using. He calls out for a Spirit Tomb, and he does something to block the attack. Much to the shock of the kids go, huh? Cynthia tells them, that's Spirit Tomb's psychic attack. It uses mental power to trap the attack and nullify it. Oh, cool. It has some other powerful attacks too. Let's test it on your Grottle's Razor Leaf. Diamond says okay, and he tells his Grottle to use Razor Leaf. Spirit Tomb then manages to use Psychic to catch that as well. Diamond says, wow, I've never seen that before. Cynthia laughs, come on, let's continue. So as the training goes on, Cynthia tells Platinum, well done, excellent. You're improving by leaps and bounds. You stand a chance of winning your gym battle now. I mean it. Platinum tells her, thank you so much for your help. One last thing. Cynthia says one last thing. Visualize the battle before you engage. Imagine your opponent's moves and prepare your response. I kind of like this. I think this is the first time in the series we solidly had a champion training one of the main characters. Usually, outside of, Wallace and Ruby, but Wallace wasn't really the champion then, even though he kind of was. It's complicated. Cynthia tells Platinum, but remember, actual fights never go exactly as you anticipate. It's also vital to position yourself to use your opponent's maneuvers to your advantage. Shoot, this really does go to show that she is the champion. She has some great insight. And honestly, this is the most spot-on characterization that I've had yet. Because I remember Cynthia's appearance in the anime. I remember how she was very calm, she was very patient, and she just wants the best for everyone. Now, she's someone who just really is all in on everyone becoming the best they could possibly be. See, that's why Cynthia has my respect. Not so much because I know her from the games, but because she's just such a decent person and a good character overall. Platinum says, I got it. And as the kids go off, Cynthia waves them off, saying good luck. Diamond calls back, thanks, Cynthia. Cynthia then says to herself, those children carry Pokédexes. That's why I wanted to help them out. Okay. She knew they had to be something special. Cynthia then spots a bike over in the bushes, saying, now then, the local bike shop has been attacked. My investigation has led me to this building, and the voice I heard calling for help was coming from the top floor. Oh, right. At the end of the volume, there was a voice calling out for help. It is always fun to see, the higher echelon of the Pokemon community actually just doing their part in trying to keep the peace. But we cut over to the Eternia gym, where after going inside, I think it's Pearl who says, wow, so this is the Eternia gym. This place is full of trees. It's like a maze. The statue says, welcome, young trainers. And then it says, you three again. Okay, so it's kept track of them? It's all the same system? That's interesting. Pearl says, whoa. While Diamond says, that's the voice we heard at the Orberg gym. The statue says, which of you trainers seek a gym battle here? And I would think it was obvious, but I guess not. See, is this an AI or is someone actually talking through it? Well, Platinum says, that would be me. The statue says, permit me to explain the rules. You will use only 2 Pokemon. Choose one of the following battle formations: switch in, elimination, or double battle. Well, Platinum says, I'll choose double battle. Ooh, okay. The statue says, very well. Find your way through the plant maze to reach your goal. Platinum says, all right. Statue then says, the gym leader Gardenia awaits you in the depths of the forest. Suddenly, something moves through the bush. Platinum questions, was that Gardenia? The statue says, no. I neglected to mention. Gardenia won't be your only opponent. There are 4 more trainers in hiding. Find and defeat them in order. Only then will you have earned the right to battle Gardenia. Always a challenge. They all go looking around. Pearl says, check it out, lady. I spotted one of the trainers over there. While Diamond then says, I bet the first one is over here. The statue says, do you two intend to escort the challenger? Diamond says, yep. While Pearl says, we're in her corner. We're her coaches. The statue says, coaching during the battle would be unfair. Get out. Eating and drinking aren't permitted in the gym either. This feels familiar. Running gags. You gotta love them. As Diamond and Pearl and their Pokemon are tossed out, Diamond says, what now, Pearl? Pearl says, we didn't come all this way just to wait on the sidelines. We gotta find a way to watch the match. They then climb a tree outside to get to a nearby window. Pearl saying, ought to be easy with so many tall trees growing all around the gym. As they make their way to the window, Pearl says, well? Diamond says, huh? Whoa. Pearl questions, what? Diamond says, it's amazing, Pearl. It's all the same. I get it's a running joke, but man, it's exactly the same. Diamond says, lady got through the maze already and beat all the preliminary trainers. Inside, Gardenia says, what's your name? Platinum says, it's Diamond says, she's already facing Gardenia, but I can't make out what they're saying. Verbatim. Gardenia says, ready? Let's start. The statue says, let the battle begin. Platinum sends out her Ponyta and Prinplup, while Gardenia sends out her Roserade and Cherub. Pearl says, lady chose Prinplup and Ponyta. I mean, that's the only 2 Pokemon she has. And Gardenia chose Roserade, and I think it's pronounced Cherubi? Ponyta's fire will come in handy against those grass-type Pokemon, and Prinplup can freeze them. She's definitely got the advantage. But, you see the massive distance between Gardenia and Platinum. As Pearl says, how will they bridge that gap? Interesting. Gardenia says, what did you expect? Roserade and Cherubi are at a safe distance from my opponent's fire and ice type attack. Diamond says, but Gardenia can't hit her opponent ear from that distance. Gardenia says, what now? While Platinum thinks there must be some way to close the distance, Gardenia says, ready or not, here I come. Commands Roserade, who unleashes a vine into the ground. Oh, what the heck? Suddenly something bursts from underneath. What? Ponyta's body needs to change, and it falls to the ground. Platinum calling out to it. While Gardenia says, Ponyta is unable to battle. Now it's just 2 versus 1. What did she do? Pearl says, Roserade stabbed this poison-tipped thorn into the ground in an underground attack. Ponyta's got done in by the poison. Distance didn't play a part in that battle at all. There's no telling where the next attack could come from. Oh boy. Platinum commands her Prinplup to go. While Gardenia says again, Roserade, and Roserade unleashes his thorn into the ground. Prinplup tries looking around for it, but it's stabbed in the back by the thorn. Pearl says, oh no, not again. Diamond says the poison hasn't taken effect yet, but it's just a matter of time. Gardenia says, and that's not just one whip. Roserade unleashes another into the ground, which all stab into Prinplup. Gardenia says the whips pierce the ground with no sign of the direction they're heading in. As soon as one whip pulls back, another attacks from a different location. It's a game of hit and run. Pearl says, Lady's Prinplup is doing everything in its power to avoid getting hit, but no, it's Diamond who says that. Pearl says, thanks to the huge space between them, Prinplup's attack can't even reach Gardenia's Pokemon. Gardenia says, I know, isn't that a shame? Now, to up the ante a little, Roserade unleashes something else. Oh, Pearl says, oh no. Diamond says, lady. Oh, as Prinplup is hit by the vines from underneath. As the 2 are stunned in silence, Diamond says, hey Dia, how about we perform a comedy routine to lighten the mood? Diamond says, good idea, Pearl. Pearl says, speaking of Pokemon. Diamond says, speaking of Pokemon. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. It's not the time for this. Oh, they want to try to give her a hint. Pearl says, there certainly are a lot of different attacks. Diamond says, there sure are. Pearl says, attacks are divided into 2 types, physical and special. Diamond says, a trainer has to be careful not to get 2 attacked to one type. Pearl says, well, if you manage to remember both types. But the statue says, stop right there. You two wouldn't happen to be doing your comedy routine to give battle hints to the challenger, would you? You busted. Yep, Pearl says, we've been caught. Gardenia says, you're doomed. You don't have a chance. With my Roserade's whips in my arsenal, there's no way I'll lose this battle. Oh. Meanwhile, back at the Galactic Eternia building, the man that Cynthia was looking for before, who owned the bike shop, is all tied up saying, somebody help me. I already told you all I know. But the members of Team Galactic just discuss things amongst themselves. Now, who's the guy? Rad Rickshaw. Okay. Rad says, are you listening? Do you understand what I'm saying? Hello? The members of Team Galactic just mumble something to themselves, but then they seem to notice something behind Rad. Rad tries to look, but he's too tied up. Oh, it's the two attacks that Cynthia has caught with her spirit tomb. They're floating up near the window. One of the Galactic grunts open the window, and as soon as they do, Cynthia commands Spirit Tomb to release the attacks, which go flying in through the window, bowling over the Team Galactic members. As the members then once again look out the window, they spot Cynthia staring daggers up at them. They all panic and go running. I can't say I blame them. Rad says, hey, wait, hold on a sec. At least untie me before you run off. Cynthia thinks, they were so scared of me they fled. So Spirit Tomb then sends the other attack, the Razor Leaf, up to the tied up Rad, and she unleashes them, which managed to sever Rad's bonds, which that's a mess. Cynthia thinks this is far enough. The bike shop owner is safe. It's time I took my leave for now. Oh shoot, that's where she's gonna end it? Interesting. As Rad exits the building, he says, phew, I'm saved. But who was that? Who rescued me with that razor leaf move? But when one of the leaves come floating down, he looks at it saying, wait, are those the rice crumbs on it? Meanwhile, in the gym battle, Gardenia says, time to finish this. Your turn, Cherubi. Tells it to use Grass Knot, which managed to trip up Prinplup, causing it to fall. Gardenia says it's even worse than when your Prinplup got caught. It's because Grass Knot gets more powerful the heavier the Pokemon is. Prinplup has to dodge being stabbed by Roserade's Thorn Whip, only for it to be once again tied down by Grass Knot. It is not going well. Timon says, I can't bear to look. Prinplup avoids another stabbing, while Pearl says, I was already struggling to avoid Roserade's tendrils. Now it's tied down with Grass Knot? How can it possibly defend against this two-pronged attack? Jeez. It's obvious Prinplup is getting exhausted. Gardenia says, looks like its evolution was its downfall. It's physically spent, and its attack still can't reach me. I've outmaneuvered you. Platinum thinks, outmaneuvered, as she remembers Cynthia's words saying, it's also vital to position yourself to use your opponent's maneuvers to your advantage. Platinum says, there is a way to reach you with my attacks after all. Gardenia says, you're bluffing. There's no way out of this one. Tells Roserade to finish it, but just as Roserade goes to attack, there's a rumbling underground. Gardenia says, how come the ground's shaking? It's getting stronger. And suddenly something bursts up forth underneath Roserade and Cherubi, and as Diamond and Pearl watch on, the entire area is filled with smoke, haze. Diamond and Pearl says she took out the Roserade and Cherubi simultaneously. Oh yeah, something clung to them. What? Diamond says she did it. Lady won. Gardenia says the blizzard attack struck them both from under their feet. Oh, they were frozen. Okay. Platinum says that's right. Blizzard is an attack in which my Pokemon blasts cold air at its opponents. Normally it would fizzle out before reaching an opponent as far away as you. The statue then says, but in this case, without realizing it, Gardenia herself created a shortcut straight to her. The holes from Roserade. Gardenia says, oh, the holes I made with Roserade's whips. They created a shortcut tunnel in the ground. Platinum says the Grass Knot helped too, by making it hard to see what move Prinplup was going to use. Gardenia says, to use my own attack against me, guess I'm beat. Oh well, as proof that you defeated me, you may have this, the Forest Badge. And Platinum clings it to her scarf. Another one achieved. As she exits the gym, Diamond says, way to go, lady. Platinum says, why, thank you very much. Suddenly, Rad Rickshaw comes in saying, hold on, you three. You're the ones, right? Diamond questions, who's this? Pat says, you're the ones who saved me when I was held captive up in the Galactic Eternia building, right? I knew it. No need to deny it. I saw you training in the opening lot next to the building. Plus, you used razor leaf to cut the ropes I was tied up with. Look at the grain of rice stuck to this leaf. The grain of delicious rice from Sweet Leaf Town, right? You can't find that variety around here. So I figured my rescuers were travelers. When I asked around the city, I was directed here. That is way too much. Please allow me to express my gratitude. I'm so glad I caught you before you left town. The next morning at the Eternia Grand Hotel, the concierge says some packages arrived for you. As the bellhop brings it to them, we see it has 3 folding bikes. Okay. I guess they have bikes now. Alright, next is chapter 11. A big stink over Stunky. Oh god, Stunky. Alright, our 3 heroes have unwrapped their bicycles and they turn off the alarm for their on their Pokédexes. I had to think about that for a second. And the attention to detail of everything that goes on in this manga is actually fascinating. The repeating factors, the things that always seem to just happen over and over again. Interesting. Diamond says, awesome, folding bikes. Platinum seems to be lost in thought, while Pearl says, cool, this will speed up our trip. The narration then says, having defeated the Eternia's gym leader, Gardenia, our 3 heroes continue on their journey. Now they approach Route 206, the cycling road. Oh, there's a cycle road here too. As they take off on their bikes, Pearl says, come on, let's roll. Diamond says, wait, Pearl. And we see Platinum wobbling on the bike and then falling over. Pearl helps her up, saying, don't tell me you don't know how to ride a bike. Platinum says, I can ride a bike. Pearl says, no, you can't. Diamond says, and Platinum says, yes, I can. And Pearl freaks out, saying, no, you can't, and that's final. You're going to have to learn. Meanwhile, with Mr. Berlitz and Professor Rowan, sorry, I got caught. Oh, that's a Floatzel. Okay. I wasn't sure. I'm like, is that Dweezil or Floatzel? I still think the evolution is lame. Dweezil was fine, but Floatzel just, something about that evolution just does not sit right with me for some reason. I don't know why. Regardless, thanks to Floatzel, they're making their way down the river. Oh, there's 2 Floatzel. Mr. Berlitz says, there it is, Professor Rowan. The professor says, excellent. Mr. Berlitz says, Kanalov City. Side of the academic conference. As they moor their boat, Mr. Berlitz says, I hear plenty of research papers will be presented this year. Mr. Berlitz says, Professor Rowan says, well, this session is 2 weeks long, if I'm not mistaken. What a wonderful opportunity to exchange theories with the nation's leading Pokémon expert. We have much to learn. Mr. Berlitz says, indeed. So, are a lot of the professors going to be here? Rowan says, I believe this conference is being held in the Kanalov Library. Mr. Berlitz says, that's right, in the first floor hall. A passing person on the opposite end of the river says out loud, I heard what happened, Rourke. I heard what happened, Rourke. You lost that to a challenger. Could use a little more training, huh? Oh, God. Yeah, it's Byron. I don't think I can get that voice down like he has in the anime. As we were saying. Meanwhile, as Byron passes by with a little... What is that? Sheldon? Shieldon. Not Sheldon. Shieldon. Sheldon's a different Pokemon. Mr. Berlitz tells Professor Rowan that tall building over there must be the library. Meanwhile, back on the route, Pearl says, got it, lady? What's the most important thing to remember when riding without training wheels? Oh, God. Platinum says, don't stop pedaling, keep your balance. I read somewhere that it's best to remove the pedals when learning how to ride. Where did you read that? God. Pearl says, book learning without practical experience will only get you so far. Now, stay aware of your body as you ride. Be in the moment. And Platinum immediately hits the ground. Oh, God. Pearl says, look, you don't have to rush this. Just relax and try to feel your balance as you move. Platinum says, I'm not rushing, and she crashes. Pearl says, this is a gentle downward slope. All you have to do is take your feet off the ground and glide. It'll be fine. There's nothing to be afraid of. Platinum says, I'm not afraid. And she crashes again. He's so stubborn. Pearl says, it's natural to fall a few times when you're learning. It's all right to cry. Does it hurt? Platinum says, I'm not crying, and it doesn't hurt. And then she crashes. this poor child. And Pearl says, lady? Down below the bridge, we see a Stunky. Pearl scratches his head, saying, Yeesh, don't push yourself so hard. Let us help you. And Platinum doesn't respond. Pearl says, huh? What's wrong? Platinum says, I scraped my elbow and my knee. I think you can see the glimmer of a tear in her eye. Diamond says, quick, someone get some antiseptic. Pearl says, hold on, Dia. You can't learn to ride a bike without taking a few spills. If she lets that discourage her, she'll never learn. Platinum seems to take offense to that, saying, fine, forget it. I'll practice by myself. Let's go, Primplop. And she takes off with her Pokemon, as Pearl just sighs while Diamond is still eating. Pearl says, what the heck? Diamond says, shouldn't we go after her? Pearl says angrily, she'll be fine. Come on, let's practice a routine about bikes. Diamond says, huh? Pearl says, now act stupid so I can hit you. Diamond says, what? Pearl says, put that food down. And he smacks it out of Diamond's hand, who says, what? And so the routine. Pearl says, speaking of Pokemon. Diamond says, speaking of Pokemon. Pearl says, you can take them on a bicycle trip. Diamond says, you sure can. Pearl says, our bikes have lots of gears. First gear, second gear, third gear. Diamond says, I'd better gear up for adventure. Pearl says, right? You see friggin' Diamond slipping on his socks. Pearl smacks him with his other sock. Pearl says, changing gears changes your speed. Diamond says, right? Really? Pearl says, for example, in fourth gear, you can climb a hill of sand in no time. Diamond says, that doesn't amount to much. What gear would you use to climb up a hill of beans? What? Well, we see that Roddle and Monferno, I'm still not remembering those names, are kind of watching a little bit worried as we see, I guess, Primplop is helping to keep Platinum steady as she has some kind of, I guess, trainer or whatever keeps the wheel up. I've never actually seen that on a bike before. It keeps the bike from moving while Diamond just pedals. Pearl says, our Pokemon are more interested in ladies' progress than our jokes. While Platinum says, don't let go no matter what. Understood, Primplop? Pearl says, she's got the kickstand down and Primplop's holding her in place, so all she's pedaling is air. How does she expect to learn anything like that? Pearl says, oh, well, might as well keep practicing our sketch, Dia. But we see Stunky getting pissed, and it shoots something out of his booty. It lands near Lady, and everyone in the area could smell it. Primplop and Platinum cover their mouths, well, their noses more specifically. Platinum saying, what's that putrid smell? It's horrible. But because Primplop isn't holding her, and because Platinum starts to wobble, the kickstand comes up, much to Diamond and Pearl's shock. Platinum is very woozily, flying downhill on her bike as Pearl calls out to the lady. Diamond says she fainted from the stench, but she's still cycling, which is wild. We gotta rescue her. And he and Pearl head for their bikes. Pearl saying, I'll go. Dia, you stay here and find out where that stink is coming from. I don't know if that's really going to help any situation. As Pearl hops on his bike, he says, Chimler, Primplop, you're with me. And they take off, making their way towards Platinum. Pearl then says, uh-oh, this looks bad. He's headed for that open viewing platform above the ravine. You gotta catch her before she goes over the edge, but I'm not fast enough. Chimler, increase the firepower in your tail and blast off like a jet. Says, ready, go. And Monferno does just that, igniting the fire on his tail and rocketing him, as well as more specifically Pearl on the bike, forward at incredible speeds, which brings up the question, now how are you all going to stop? As they near the passed out Platinum, rocketing towards the viewing platform, Pearl said, just a little further. I know we're running out of time. The path's too short. We'll never catch up. That's it. We need a longer path. Primplop, now that you've evolved, you can do it. Make us a path, an ice path. And Primplop is ready as Primplop makes a friggin' ramp, just like friggin' Iceman out of the X-Men. A ramp that leads, unfortunately, upward over the viewing platform. Well, Pearl says, perfect. If the path keeps reaching up into the sky like this, it'll become an ice slope and... oh, okay. I guess that's good. I expected her to just go racing over, but because it's going straight up, her acceleration decreases because of that. But while she is no longer going forward, she's now, it's like the loop-de-loops in Sonic the Hedgehog, but you only have so much velocity. Oh, okay. I was expecting something else. But her momentum just stops and then she rolls back down. The only downside is Platinum regains consciousness at that moment and then freaks out a little bit. Though Primplump does manage to save her from rolling back even further. Pearl says, "We saved her. Well, that took years off my life. Good work, Primplump. You did it." And he gives Primplump a thumbs up. Diamond then comes in with the rest of their Pokemon, with plugs up his nose and Grotto carrying the Stunky, saying, "I found the source of that smell, guys." The Pokédex reads, "Stunky, the skunk Pokemon. It protects itself by spraying a noxious fluid from its rear. The stench lingers for 24 hours. Oh, God." Diamond says it came from a Stunky. Lady's crashes made so much noise it got mad and sprayed. Says here the smell won't go away for a whole day. Pearl says, "You better let that Stunky go before he gets mad again, right?" And then Platinum just pedals past them, much to their shock and surprise. Pearl says, "Whoa, no way." Diamond says, "You did it, lady. You're riding a bicycle." And even Platinum's a little surprised. She says, I am riding a bicycle." She then says, "My apologies to both of you. It's best to heed expert advice when learning something new. Now, please advise me how to stop." Yeah. Pearl says, "The brakes. Squeeze the brakes." Platinum says, "Brakes? What brakes?" And I guess it's Platinum again who says, "Ouch, my foot's caught." While Diamond says, "Lady, you're riding. And then we see elsewhere, further down on the cycle road, the silhouette of a person that I'm very familiar with, the crossroads between Oreburgh City and Mount Cornet. And I believe it's Cyrus. But what is he doing here? Interesting. Alright, now it's chapter 12. Passing by Probopass and maneuvering around Magnezone. Interesting. We see Cyrus exiting the cycle road, and he opens a Pokeball, unleashing... Is it Honchkrow? Yep, it's Honchkrow. Okay, I had to double check. I do know of Honchkrow, and wasn't certain about the name. But I guess the receptionist at the cycle road comes rushing out, saying, "Excuse me, sir, a moment, please. We've received a package for you at the south gate. My apologies for detaining you on your way out." Wait, a package? It's kind of weird that who would deliver a package at the cycle road of all things? The lady says, would you mind signing this proof of receipt, please?" Cyrus says, "Of course." The lady says, "Here's a pen." Cyrus says, "No, thank you. To write one's name is to leave a part of oneself behind. It's not something to be done lightly. If I'm to sign this, I'll use my personal fountain pen." It looks like it has a Honchkrow feather on it. And that is an elaborate pen. Like, god damn. Cyrus and its weird philosophical approaches to things. I'm only passingly familiar with Cyrus because of various animations that I've seen. This is the point where we're getting into the territory of me knowing things a little bit more from the Generations and Evolution short and like YouTube entries and stuff like that. The lady says, "Certainly." And Cyrus signs his name very skillfully. And we see the man himself looming over the signature, very imposing, like even the woman's just kind of like has a look of why is this guy so intense? Back inside the building for the cycle road, we see Platinum and the gang chilling out in the lounge, and the smell coming off of them just overwhelming everyone else inside. I guess the gang kind of got used to it. Diamond says, "Do we really stink that bad?" Everyone's keeping their distance. Platinum says, "It would appear so." While passing by mother and child, the child says, "Mama, they're smelly." And the woman tells her child, "Shh," while you see others coughing and hacking and opening windows. Diamond says, "I guess I've gotten used to it." Pearl says, "First, you reek of honey, and then gas, and now, like farts. You got stink bombed 3 times in a row." And a person says, "Excuse me." Oh, it's the receptionist. I don't know if it's the same one, but her nose is all crooked because she's trying to be as polite as possible, saying, "We have an outdoor hot spring and spa. Swimwear is available for rental. You're most welcome to avail yourselves of our facilities. I mean, you simply must, after coming all this way, You're sure to regret it if you don't. Oh, Pearl thinks they're forcing us to wash off this smell. Are we causing that much of a disturbance? Well, Platinum thinks a hot spring, while Diamond thinks we stink so bad our nose went all crooked. Platinum says, be so good as to show us the way. I'd like someone to scrub my back and please arrange a massage following my bath. The receptionist says, what? Well, Pearl says, whatever, come on, let's hit the bath, Dia. And Diamond says, all right. And so they're in the spring. Diamond is lathering up a storm while Pearl is relaxing in the bath saying, I doubt this will get rid of the 24-hour stunky smell, but it sure is relaxing. And Chatot repeats, relaxing, relaxing. Diamond says, you said it. Pearl pops out of the bath. He says, all right, now that we're good and rested, let's practice our stand-up routine. Diamond says, huh? But you're in your swim trunks. Pearl says, who cares? There's nobody around. Diamond says, what? Pearl says, now act dumb so I can hit you. Diamond says, huh? Pearl says, but first, put down that soap down. Diamond says, no! The switch up actually makes it funnier as their Pokemon are, well, Monferno and Chatot are chilling in the sauna. Grottle and Munchlax, who's still stacking away, are in the jacuzzi. Pearl says, speaking of Pokemon. Diamond says, speaking of Pokemon. Pearl says, you can use special items with them. Diamond says, you sure can. Pearl says, there are lots of useful ones. Personally, I like the wide lens because it increases your accuracy to land an attack. Diamond says, the wide lens, huh? But does it help you land a snack? Eepee, where is it? Where is it? Pearl throws a friggin' wash basin at him, saying, come back here and finish our routine. Stones are also a type of item. Diamond says, they sure are. Pearl says, there's the hard stone, oval stone, dawn stone, dust stone. Diamond says, moonstone and sunstone. Pearl says, oh, thunderstone, firestone, lunastone. Pearl says, that isn't a stone, it's a Pokemon. A lunatone. There he goes. I missed the joke. Pearl then goes over to Is that something to weigh himself? I mean, oh, we had a nice hot bath and made up some gags. Can't complain, right? But as Diamond goes over the window, drying his hair, well, we have Monferno drawing Munchlax. Diamond says, wow. Pearl says, what is it, Dia? And as he's taken a little bit aback as he walks over to Diamond and their Pokemon looking out the window. Pearl says, what's going on? Trimler and the others, what are they so focused on? Diamond says, check it out, Pearl. The clouds covered it before, but now it's amazing. Pearl looks out the window going, huh? Oh, wow. Oh, is that Mount Cornet? Are they already here? Man, she only got 2 badges, too. Dang, that was a fast trip. But can they access it yet? Pearl says, it's Mount Cornet. I can't believe it. We made it. Diamond says, yep, the peak of Mount Cornet, our final destination. Yahoo! Pearl says the mountain runs through the center of the Sinnoh region from north to south, separating the regions east and west. I didn't realize we'd already reached its base. I thought we'd be on the road forever, but now that we're here, the time seems to have flown by. All that's left is to scale that peak. It sure is massive. Diamond says, Pearl, look. The wild Pokemon are attracted to Mountain 2. They've come out of hiding. That Pearl says, yeah, and they're facing the mountain too. Yeah, there's a plethora of Pokemon. Pearl says maybe there's some kind of special energy emanating from Mount Cornet that attracts wild Pokemon's souls. Diamond says, could be. Interesting. So as everybody's been refreshed from the bath and head out, they're still in the building with Pearl saying, well, time to go mountain climbing. While we see, okay, so it's a different receptionist. Cyrus is at the exit making his way. All the bodyguards have arrived on bike. One saying, phew, still not even a glimpse of her, Uji. While the other says, that's right, Paka. Okay, Paka and Uji. Interesting. Wasn't sure if their names were actually going to be relevant. So Uji is the one with the little curly cue coming down, while Paka's the one with the lips. Gotcha. Paka says, we followed our client all this way since she left her bodyguards, us, behind. While Uji says, first we took Route 203 from Jubilife City to Orberg City, then we changed course to Route 204 to pass through Floroma Town. Next we passed through Eternia Forest and Eternia City. Now we've arrived at Route 206, also known as the Cycling Road. Paka says, we got an eyewitness report this morning at the North Gate that she's definitely somewhere in this vicinity, Uji. Uji says, it's just a matter of time till we catch up to him. Paka then says, shall we take a break at the South Gate, Uji? Paka says, I hear they have a spa there, Paka. Oh, Uji says that. Paka says, shall we have ourselves a nice sweat, Uji? Uji says, yeah, let's, Paka. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we see Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum making their way alongside a very large plethora of Pokemon, just making their way to Mount Cornet. Pearl says, hold it. Doesn't this seem a little strange to you? Our goal is to summit Mount Cornet, right? So what are we doing inside a cave? The road signs lead us here. What gives? Diamond says, don't worry. We're going the right way, Pearl. The path to the peak starts halfway up the mountain. You have to reach it via these caves, though. Pearl says, oh, I get it. Diamond says, unfortunately, this cave doesn't lead to the mountain path. How do you know all of this? The only cave that leads to the mountain path is on the east side of the mountain. Pearl says, in other words, we need to exit to the east side to find the correct cave entrance there. Hey, Diamond, did you read all this in a guidebook? Diamond says, yep. Pearl says, and when exactly did you read it? Diamond says, this morning. Pearl says, so why didn't you tell us before we went the wrong way? Pearl says, hush, you're yelling. Platinum says, hush, you're yelling so loud your voice is echoing. And their little argument is echoing as we see Cyrus a little ways up in the cavern. He thinks to himself, what a nuisance. I came all this way to experience the energy of the creation of the world. It's time for you to absorb the power of the mountain and evolve into new forms. Oh, you cannot allow those who would disturb such a mystical sight go unpunished. He says to Nosepass and Magneton, and they leap down towards Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Diamond says, wild Pokemon. Platinum says, there's something strange about these two. Well, Pearl says, they're trembling. It's like they're absorbing some kind of energy from land and air itself. And suddenly, Nosepass evolves into Probopass, and Magneton evolves into Magnezone, which I don't really care for Magnezone, honestly. It's kind of weird. Probopass too. There's a lot of evolutions in this generation that just, I don't know, they don't really sit right with me. I don't hate them. They're just not my cup of tea. Pearl says they evolved, and Cyrus snaps his fingers. Oh, and it seems that Probopass and Magnezone use their magnetic abilities to cause a massive cave-in on top of our trio. Jeez, the only one left not buried is Diamond. And as Cyrus looks down upon the injured kids, he thinks to himself, that's what you get for disturbing a mystical sight. And he walks away. Jeez. It's like, I've killed more children for less. God dang, Cyrus. While the unburied Diamond manages to come to his senses, he looks around saying, Pearl, Lady, Chimler, Prinplup, Ponyta? Hey, where'd everybody go? Hello? And we see an unknown figure behind the Diamond, watching. Back at the cycling road, we see the two receptionists, one saying, sheesh, what's with all the strange customers today? The other says, you said it. The one with the warped nose says, 3 stinky kids, an unbearable stench. The other one thinks to herself, whoa, so bad it warped her nose. He then tells her, myself, I had a crazy customer who insisted on using his own pen just to sign off on a package. The one with the crinkled nose says, what's so weird about that? The other one says, but that's not all. What was really bizarre is that he was headed for Mount Cornet, and he told me. She flashes back to the moment, telling Cyrus, sorry for holding you up. Are you going sightseeing at Mount Cornet? Cyrus says, no. I'm going there to experience the energy of the creation of the world. The woman says, what? Cyrus moves towards the woman, saying, I'm sure you're aware that Mount Cornet is said to be the primary topographical site of the Sinnoh region. He looms over the woman because of his haunch crow, saying, at the dawn of the creation of the world, there was no conflict. Our Pokemon fought in battles, yes, but that is different from conflict. As a Pokemon trainer, I must never forget that distinction. He then backs off, saying, well, the human heart is a fragile thing. Great obstacles lie ahead. The woman says to the one with the crinkled nose, that's what he said. His exact words. The one with the crinkled nose says, wow, he sounds so philosophical. Who was he? The other one says, on his invoice he wrote that he's from something called the Cosmic Energy Development Corporation. Oh, is that what they call themselves? The one with the crinkled nose says, I've heard of them. They want to harness cosmic energy for everyone. They even have commercials. Really? I didn't realize Team Galactic was that public in the region. Though I guess Team Galactic is their more disguised name. Cut back to Cyrus making his way through the mountain with his Pokemon. As he receives a call on his Pokegear, he answers saying, "Ah, yes. Ah, it's you. I received the package with the 2 Pokemon inside." Oh, they were inside the package. Interesting. They've already evolved thanks to the power of the mountain. What other problem? Ah, that. Yes. Go ahead and see to it. Yes, I'll supply funding per your request. I'll leave the ways and means up to you. Okay. Meanwhile, back inside the mountain, Diamond calls out, "Pearl, lady!" And it just echoes, no response. He says, "Still no answer. They must be buried under the rubble. We got separated in the blast. What can I do?" But Groddle and Munchlax grab his pants. Diamond says, "True, Lax." Diamond slaps himself on the cheek, saying, "Right. We're the only ones who weren't buried, so it's up to us to keep it together and rescue the others." Pearl always wakes up before anyone else. Even if he got knocked out, he still might wake up before Lady. So let's try to catch Pearl's attention first. And it says, "I got an idea." What did he grab? And it kind of looks like Munchlax slaps Groddle in the face. Oh, was that Munchlax trying to clue Diamond in on what they should do? Diamond calls out, "Speaking of Pokemon," and as it echoes through the cave, he hears a weak, "Speaking of," Diamond says, "He answered." His voice came from this direction. God, of all things. Hey, it's not a bad tactic. And there have been people out in comas. In fact, it was it with Mel Blanc, where he was like in some kind of coma, and they tried their best in order to wake him up. And the way that they were actually able to wake him up was by asking some kind of question to Bugs Bunny, and he like woke up saying, "Yeah, what's up, Doc?" Because he's the voice of Bugs Bunny, and that's so ingrained in who he is. Or it was something to that degree. That's the thing. Speaking to someone's subconscious can really bring them out of an interesting and painful situation. Simon says his voice came from this direction, right? They have distributions. Pearl responds, "They sure do. Meaning Pokemon make their home in different places." Diamond says, "It's easy to tell where Beedrill and Combee live, right?" Pearl says, "Oh, why is that?" Diamond says, "They sure do. Just look for the place where they make their comb." Oh, God. When he doesn't get a response, Diamond says, "What about our kicker punchline? I've got a general idea where he is, but..." Then tells this Pokemon, "True. Lax, stop. Be careful how you dig, or you could accidentally cause a rock slide and bury them even deeper." Suddenly there's movement behind them, and out comes one of my favorite Pokemon, a Luxray. Yes, I love Luxray. I think it was one of the trainers of this region who had one too. I forget who had a Luxray that I really loved, but I just love the design and the colors on the thing. And the intimidating look in the eyes, so good. And it says, "Not another wild Pokemon. No, stay away. We're in enough trouble already." But the Luxray leaps towards him, and as Diamond shrinks back, Luxray bashes in the rocks. "Oh, I came to rescue a little Shinx." Diamond says, "Oh, did you lose someone in the rock slide too? How did you find your little friend?" The Luxray looks towards Diamond and then slaps him with his... Oh, it's the one from before. It evolved. As Diamond is a little shocked by the Luxray's paws, Diamond then looks at the claws, saying, "Those claws. You're the Luxio we met on Route 203. Now I know how you did it. Please, help me find Pearl under this rubble, and Lady too." Luxray gives a nods and then uses its X-ray vision and manages to locate Pearl and Platinum. Diamond looks at his Pokédex saying, "X-ray vision. Is that where he is, Luxray? Are they both under there?" He says, "Right. True. Lax. Both of you use tackle. Give it all you've got." They use their ability to blast off all the rocks. And as Diamond looks inside where they blasted, he says, "Pearl, Lady." Now we see Pearl, Platinum, and their Pokemon a little roughed up, but okay. Diamond goes to each of them saying, "Hang in there. You're gonna be okay." With tears in his eyes, he looks to Luxray saying, "Pearl, look, it's that Luxio from before. It evolved into Luxray and helped me find you both." Pearl gives a wave and Luxray gives a nod. Diamond then comes out of the hole saying, "Luxray, could you help us one last time? What's the closest exit towards the east? Luxray uses his X-ray vision to look around and then points in a direction. Diamond says, this way? Let's bust through together. But Luxray shakes his head. Diamond saying, huh? You're headed west? And we see a whole pack of the other Shinx and Luxio and Luxray. Luxray takes off. Aw, I was hoping it would actually join him this time, but it's all about helping its pride. Diamond waves it off saying, okay, thanks for everything, Luxray. See you later. Dang it! It's such a cool Pokemon! Why won't you capture it? I know, you're respecting its decisions. Diamond tells his Pokemon, alright, True, Lax, you know what to do. And they use Tackle with Diamond digging himself in order to make their way out. As light peeks through the walls, Diamond says, we did it, I see sunlight. He tells the others, let's go, Pearl, lady. We'll come out on the east side of the Sinnoh region. Meanwhile, in another location, I know that hairdo. Oh, he's Saturn. Okay, I thought it was another. I thought his name was different. I thought he was Jupiter, but he's Saturn. He says, money. As the other members of Team Galactic are, I guess, typing away, they all repeat, money, money, money. Saturn says, money. The boss said we can get it any way we like. Oh, he's sitting with a Krogunk. I do like Krogunk, because Brock's Krogunk says, how about if we kidnap some rich brat and demand a huge ransom? That ought to make us some quick dough. And it just so happens we know someone who fits the bill. As the other members of Team Galactic are typing up on their keyboards, Saturn says, the only daughter of the wealthiest family of the Sinnoh region. She's traveling at the moment. Perfect timing. Do we have a picture of her? No. How about a photo of the bodyguards her father assigned her? If we can find those two. And they bring up pictures of Taka and Uji. As Saturn says, they should lead us straight to the girl. Excellent. As we see Taka and Uji washing themselves, Taka saying, I'll wash your back next, Uji. Taka says, I'm counting on it, Taka. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I was wondering how they would get wrapped up in the actions of Team Galactic. All right, now, Chapter 13. Boogieing with Baniri. Which, here comes the real popular one. And we have Prinplup, Monferno, and Grotto. I finally remembered all their names. My goodness. All busting down the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. Bring their trainers, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Pearl says, phew, we made it to the east side of the Sinnoh region. If we go straight down Route 208, we should be in Hearthome City soon. We see they're on top of a very rickety-seeming bridge, and it seems that Platinum is a little bit intimidated by it as Prinplup helps her across. Diamond says, too bad we'll end up further away from Mount Cornet. And I think it's Platinum who says, it can't be helped. The only way to reach the peak is from the east. Oh, okay. So there's only one known real safe route up the mountain. Gotcha. So Pearl thinks, what happened back inside that mountain? It was like some kind of mystical energy inside the cave triggered those Pokemon's evolution. What's that about? He then goes racing after the other saying, oh well, no use worrying about things you don't understand. Time to rehearse, Dio. Hunter says, what now? Pearl says, no time like the present. Come on, speaking of Pokemon, it's fun to go shopping when you travel with them. Diamond says, it sure is. Pearl says, every town has places that sell cool stuff like Pokeballs and medicine. What are those called again? Diamond says, oh, I know. The Pokemart Chop. As he chops Pearl in the face, Diamond says, no. It's a Pokemart Shop, not Chop. Diamond says, oh, right. Pearl says, we get to the next one. What would you like to buy? I could use a full heal. Ow. Diamond says, oh, does it hurt where I chopped you? I have a full heal you can use. Pearl says, you idiot, I was kidding. That's just for Pokemon. Platinum says, I myself would purchase a new brooch, a necklace, well, Pearl thinks, she just ruined our punchline. While Platinum's on Ponyta reading her pamphlet, it says here that Hearthome City is a fashion capital. The shops sell all manner of jewelry, clothes, and makeup that you can't find anywhere else. Chatot repeats, fashion. Ah. Diamond says, girls are really into that stuff, huh? Pearl says, yeah, but if they don't like the things you pick out for them, they get mad. That's a little sexist, but whatever. I mean, if someone bought you something you didn't like, you'd probably be a little peeved too. At the very least disappointed. Pearl says, look, I see the city entrance. And as we see the sign saying Heart Home City straight ahead, there's something on top of the sign. Pearl says, huh? Oh, it's a bunnery. And it's doing a little dance. It's just shaking that thing. Pearl says, is that a wild Pokemon? Diamond says, here, it's a bunnery. Oh, Diamond says here, it's a bunnery. Pearl says, oh, what's it doing? And bunnery's just giving it all. You know, stomping, jumping, spinning. Elegant. Diamond says, I think it's dancing. Platinum says, an adorable little Pokemon. Though, is Prinplup also trying to dance a little? Pearl comes over with something to say, haha, cute little Pokemon, isn't it? Here, have a berry. And Bunnery proceeds to use its ear to just smack him away. Like, dang, uncalled for. I thought it was just trying to get attention or something. After Pearl gets cold clocked, he says, huh? Diamond checks his Pokédex saying, says here that Bunnery strikes their opponents by quickly extending their rolled up ears. The Pokédex reads, Bunnery, the rabbit Pokemon. It slams foes by sharply coiling its rolled ears. It stings enough to make a grown-up cry in pain. Yeah, and a friggin' sneak attack. Pearl sends in his Monferno saying, not cool. Get it. Go get it, Chimler. But Bunnery manages to psych out Monferno, jumping on its head, sending it slamming into the city sign. Bunnery goes hopping away, and Pearl jumps on his bike saying, after it, to Monferno. Diamond says, Pearl, wait. But Prinplup follows too, much to Platinum's shock, as she says, not you too, Prinplup. So everyone's just chasing down that Bunnery. But as they race on their bikes through the city, I'm not sure who says it. I feel like it would be Diamond who looks around saying, wow, lady wasn't kidding. This place is packed with boutiques and people wearing fancy clothes. Okay, this is a bougie place. Oh, Pokemon contests. Interesting. Who's going to enter a contest? Will you even acknowledge it? Because Ruby was all about contests, but Diamond and Pearl I couldn't see being into contests like that. Or maybe they would be. Well, Bunnery races into one place. As Pearl says, the Bunnery hopped into that building. Diamond ends up crashing into Pearl's bike just as Pearl leaps off and races into the building saying, hold it right there. And inside is the Pokemon Super Contest where the announcer says, to show how cute, how cool, how smart, how tough, and how beautiful your Pokemon is. Welcome to Heart Home City. As Platinum enters and finds her Prinplup, the announcer says, and welcome to the Super Contest, where contestants compete to see who has the most charming Pokemon of all. As Platinum looks around with Prinplup, he says, this place sure is crowded. We lost Pearl and Dia already. Well, Prinplup, I'm guessing you went chasing after that Bunnery for a different reason than Pearl. She doesn't say his name for some reason. Weird. Is it because you couldn't resist its dancing, right? Prinplup's a little taken aback and a little shy about it. Platinum says, no need to be shy. The truth is, I could neither. The announcer says, moving on to our second judging. Contestants, please proceed this way. And the crowd overtakes Platinum. And she goes, huh? What? Oh, it seems the Bunnery has a trainer. The girl just yoinks up the Bunnery saying, got you. Oh, Irma, where on earth did you hop off to? The contest is just about to start. You must have been practicing your dance really hard. You're all sweaty. Enter Pearl, who says, hey. The girl says, I beg your pardon. Pearl says, are you that Bunnery's trainer? The girl says, yes, I am. My name is Kira? I guess Kira. My name is Kira. Watch out for the death note. And my Bunnery here is Irma. Oh, Irma. Gotcha. Pearl shows off his bruise saying, well, my name is Pearl and your Bunnery hit me. Kira says, hit you? And Diamond says, I'm Dia. Kira says, oh, are you referring to this move? And Bunnery extends his ears rapidly. Pearl says, yeah, that's the ear snap that got me. The girl says, silly boy, that's just one of Irma's dance moves. You must have gotten your face in the way while Irma was practicing a dance routine. Pearl growls while the girl says, looks like I hit the nail on the head. Here, let me make it up to you. Have some glitter power. Keep an eye on the stage. It'll all become clear to you soon. I'm a judge. Oh, a judge. Interesting. Oh, so she's a judge for the... Interesting. Are there a lot of judges? 3 judges. Jordan, Dexter, and Kira. Interesting. Okay. You didn't really have the judges very front and center last time. I know in the anime you had notable judges, but this is the first time they've really been present in the manga. Pearl says, a judge? A stage? And it says, hey, where'd Lady go? Pearl says, oh, we better find her fast. And it says, let's go. The announcer, who is, and we've met him a few times too, Chertaro, God, says, moving on to our second judging, the dance competition. Oh, and Platinum's on stage with her Primfloat. Diamond calls out, Pearl, down there, it's Lady. Pearl says, what's she doing? Platinum thinks, dance contest? And while Primfloat just like lightly jogs in place, Platinum just waves her arms and turns. Diamond repeats the motion. Pearl says, what kind of dance is that supposed to be? Chertaro says, please excuse us a moment. On behalf of the management, I'd like to apologize to our contestants and audience. It appears there's been a mix-up, and someone has accidentally wandered on stage. One of the people in the audience says, no one in their right mind would enter the competition with that poor excuse for a dance routine. But another person says, oh my, look, see those flashy rings on her finger? That girl must be from a well-off family. Did she honestly think she could win with those dorky moves just because she's rich? Give us a break. You've got some nerve. You got nerve making a mockery of our dance contest. Diamond calls to Pearl while Pearl says, what a disaster. Oh, okay, I wasn't sure who was talking. But Platinum, now with Chertaro's mic, says, you're mistaken. Pearl says, huh? Platinum says, it's a coincidence that I ended up here. But if I enter this contest, I pledge to compete fair and square, relying on talent alone. This I vow on the Berlitz family name. One of the judges, I guess, says, if you enter the contest, you really intend to participate? Oh, it's an older man. It's the other judge, Dexter, main judge Dexter. He says, well, there is a slot open in tomorrow's contest, so are you going to enter or not? Oh, it's putting down the challenge. See, this is the image of Platinum that I remember seeing for the manga. I saw it briefly, so I thought she was much more of an intense character. So, I mean, she is in this moment as she says, I hereby officially enter tomorrow's super contest. While Pearl says, didn't I say this was a disaster? Well, Diamond says that means cut to 5 a.m. the following morning at the Heart Home Great Hotel. Oh God. Pearl enters a room yawning and then says, whoa, as we see all of their Pokemon dressed up. Pearl says, what's with the crazy get-ups? Enter Platinum saying, you're changing your style too. I've prepared an outfit for you. Oh God, she's going all in on this. Pearl says, huh? Platinum says, I purchased Pokemon accessories from the most luxurious boutiques in town. Pearl says, luxurious? So you paid a lot for them? Platinum says, don't worry, I own the boutiques. Of course she does. Enter Diamond, his Pokedex beeping saying, good morning everyone, half asleep. Oh, well, these are some nice outfits. Although Diamond looks like such a dork. It's the shorts. Pearl says, hurry up and change, Dia. Diamond questions, huh? Platinum says, for God's sakes, you're trying to stick your head through your sleeve. And put down that food. Now then, let's get started. Let's begin our special training for the super contest. Everyone comes in dressed to the nines. Heck yeah. So she's competing in both gym battles and contests? Huh. I mean, it makes sense. Why split it up if you don't have to? I mean, the mangaka are trying their best to not relegate the girls to the contest like the anime did, which I'm kind of glad because, I don't know, something about that feels a little wrong to just always have the female characters in contests and contests only. Like, I get it. That tends to be a bit more of the role you would expect for females, but something about that just sounds a little wrong the more I think about it. Like, oh, of course only the girls would be interested in Pokemon contests. Like, screw you. There's just something really wrong about that frame of mind. So I can't say that's the bad way to go about all of this. So I wonder, is this actually something she wears is the little outfit something she actually wears in game? It's not like the one in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but that would naturally be different. I wonder if the Dawn from the anime ever wore this. No. Well, Dawn wore a lot of outfits in the anime, like Jabus. I thought they'd have a listing of all the various different outfits that Dawn has wore, but doesn't look like it. And then there's all the outfits from Masters, but yeah, they don't have a listing of that either. Yeah, no. I guess this is specially designed for the manga. Okay, interesting. Oh my god, they're wearing it on this page, on the adventure map too. Wait, is she gonna have a section for ribbons as well? But they're wearing all of their little costumes in this page too. That's funny. Alright, chapter 14 in the last chapter of this video. Perturbed by Pachirisu. Okay. Alright, and now we pick up with everyone doing a little bit of training. I love their costumes. Pearl saying, okay, now a 1 and a 2 and a 3. And everybody's just doing a little bit of dance practice. Though when Primplump smacks into Platinum, who smacks into Ponyta, Pearl says, it's jump, forward, right, left. You're doing it all wrong. Why is he the guy to go to when it comes to training? Why are you so good at everything, Pearl? He tells Platinum, you have to remember your choreography. Jump, then forward, then right, then left. All right, let's try Chimler as the main dancer and Primplump and True as backup. Just copy Chimler's moves, okay? He's like an actual tutor. My god. I get more impressed with this guy as time goes on. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. Pearl always seems to just know the right direction for pretty much everything, except his comedy routines half the time. Diamond, just an unrelenting sense of determination. When it comes, like when the chips are down, when Pearl's out of ideas, Diamond steps to the occasion. While Platinum, she just has the fortitude to just get through any situation. Like, it really does shine with their characters. I like this. Pearl says, got it? Once again, from the top, as he's holding a Super Contest Perfect Guide. Pearl says, the Pokemon Super Contest is a battle of Pokemon charm. The judging is divided into 3 categories. First, the visual competition. You dress up and accessorize your Pokemon to win the judges' hearts. Next, the dance competition. The Pokemon soloists and backup dancers perform a choreographed routine to the rhythm of castanets. Oh, okay. That's why Pearl has castanets. Gotcha. That was the contest you stumbled into, lady. And finally, for the third round, the acting competition. Pokemon show off their talents and are judged on their appeal. The scores for all 3 rounds are tallied up, and the winner is announced. With so many elements in the contest, there's one critical issue to consider. We're performing today. We've only got 8 hours to prepare. Jesus. Platinum says, I understand. I'll give it all I've got. Pearl says, fine. I know you're trying your hardest, lady. That's why we're helping you out. But you have to admit, it's got to be next to impossible to win first place after yesterday's disaster, when he means beating every other contestant out there. But Platinum, shivering with anticipation, says, no matter what, I have to give it my best, because I vowed on my family's name in front of all those people. Like, dang, she got that fire in her eyes, like Jesus. Pearl says, that's the part I don't get. Platinum says, what don't you understand? The Berlitz family name is on the line. Pearl says, but it's just a name. Platinum freaks out, saying, just a name? And then it says, looks like things are gonna get rough. Better hide inside your Pokeballs. Oh god. It's the Pokemon fan club chairman of the Sinnoh region? Or is this just the usual Pokemon fan club chairman? I don't know. Well, the Pokemon fan club chairman enters saying, excuse me, you 3. I just happen to be passing by. Are those Pokeballs you're handling there by any chance? Diamond says, yep, that's right. The chairman says, impressive. Youngins with their own Pokemon already. It's weird how each chairman manages to get involved with the protagonists. Platinum says, thank you. Pearl says, it isn't all that rare, is it? Diamond says, that beard looks fake. He pulls at the chairman's beard. The chairman says, ow, ow. And your assertiveness is all the more impressive. Now, let's see who we have inside. As he just accesses their balls, while Pearl says, hey, wait. And he brings them all out saying, come out, come out. Oh, marvelous. That clinches it. I hereby initiate you three as honorary members of the Pokemon Fan Club. Platinum says, the Pokemon Fan Club? The chairman says, right this way. God, it's just the weirdest sense of deja vu. Speaking of running gags, my God, the dedication to have done this so many times. Shoot. Actually thinking about it, and I have to actually think about it. How many times have we been through this? We had the chairman in Kanto, and was he involved in Johto? I don't think so. I don't think he was involved in Johto. So we skipped over the Johto chairman. Oh, no, actually, as it turns out, the Johto chairman is the same one from Kanto. So he just crosses over, as the game says. It's not a new one. But you have the Hoenn chairman who meets with Ruby. That's also from the game. And then you have the Sinnoh chairman. Interesting. Okay. There's also a chairman in Unova and chairman in Kalos. Well, from the looks of things, the manga stops at this one, the Sinnoh chairman. Unless they just didn't list the rest of them. Oh, that's unfortunate. I kind of was hoping they'd keep the joke going. I actually kind of like how, interestingly, each chairman gets involved in a main plot to some degree. Because he was very close to Red. The Kanto one was close to Red. The Hoenn was close to Ruby. And now you got the Sinnoh one talking to Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. It's just kind of sad that this no longer appears after this point. Well, cut to the Pokemon Fan Club as the chairman says, right this way. He comes in and tells one of the ladies inside, you there, send this to producer Dennis of Jubilife TV. And all three of the kids say, wow, a Pokemon stamp. Again, this feels so familiar. Pearl says, who are you, mister? The chairman says, why, the esteemed president of this club, naturally. Our organization's mission is to care for Pokemon and share the wonder of Pokemon around the globe. I see you are preparing to enter the Super Contest. I can tell by your costumes and accessories. Participants in the contest share my dream of glorifying the charm of Pokemon. Which, again, I love that because it went from the idea of beautifying your Pokemon or treating them more like pets and, things you care for was kind of at a loss in the early generations. But now at this point, it's just like, no, of course, you beautify your Pokemon, give them accessories, doll them up, show off their moves. Pokemon just natural evolution to that mindset. They're not just creatures for battle, they're your pets, they're your companions. The chairman says, participants in the contest share my dream of glorifying the charm of Pokemon, which makes us instant comrades. Thus, I would like to present you with a gift, a Poffin case. Store your Poffin in here and they'll be available at your convenience. Also works great for cell phones. Oh, that's kind of cool. You'll always have Poffins on you anytime, anywhere. Accessories are vital for the first round of judging, but results are heavily based on the condition of your Pokemon. Diamond is checked out as he's about to fall asleep with his Pokemon. Our chairman goes on, he says, which Poffin you give your Pokemon is critical. Platinum says, excuse me, what is a Poffin? We've gone from, what was it before? It was, what was it? The Pokeblocks that you would stir with the berries and all that? And now it's Poffins. Yeah, I remember when Poffins became the big thing. Yeah, this was the last area that Pokemon contests were a primary thing in any way, shape, or form, which was kind of a bummer. I didn't hate them, but the president says, your ignorance astounds me. Poffins are foodstuffs that keep your Pokemon in peak condition. Basically, it's treats made from berries. And that catches Diamond and his Pokemon's attention as he wakes up saying, did someone say treats? Oh, wait, the routine is being done by Pearl and the president? Pearl says, speaking of Pokemon contests. The president says, speaking of Pokemon contests. Pearl says, your Pokemon's condition is very important. The president says, it sure is. Pearl says, I want my Chatot to be in prime condition. That's why I took such good care of Chatler. I want Chatler to achieve peak performance. The president says, good luck with that. Frankly, your Chatler looks a bit peak to me. Chatlot gets pissed, and Pearl has to say, calm down, Chatler. That was rude. Chatler can still earn points by wearing the right accessories, can it? The president says, allow me. And he throws out a bunch on Chatler, saying, what do you think? Pearl says, Chatler's too small to support all that crazy stuff. Well, the president says, instead of peeking, it's weeping. What the hell? Pearl says, wait a sec, why am I practicing my comedy routine with you anyway? The president says, what choice do you have? Look over there. And we see in the kitchen, as the president says, your friend is busy making poffins in the poffin house. There's a house dedicated to this? God. And yeah, Diamond seems very intent on making poffins. Yeah, that was a big thing back then, yeah, huh? But, there is cooking for other regions and stuff like that. I remember regions where you'd make the stew and you cook outdoors and stuff like that. So, certain little mini games and elements like that were a big thing way back when. As Diamond is stirring in the poffin pot, he says, stir slowly to avoid spilling. Once it begins to firm up, stir quickly to prevent scorching, and done. He's made a perfect poffin. Diamond says, now for the taste test. What do you think? True? Lax? Feels like something's missing to me. It needs to be a little smoother. Oh well, I'll try different berries in my next batch. Like that, he is intensely focused on this. My God. I didn't expect him to take this seriously. Pearl says, look at all the effort he's putting into this. When it comes to food, Dia's no slacker, right? While we see Platinum practicing. Oh, wait, is that kind of looks like, yeah, Joanna. Is she Diamond's mom in this series? Oh, yep, I just got spoiled. Sure enough, she is. I shouldn't have looked that deeply into it. But I was so curious. I'm like, wait, she would technically be Diamond's mom's here, since Pearl comes from a different family. Huh. Wait, going off of that in the anime, doesn't that mean Diamond's alternate persona, Lucas, comes from a rich family? Huh. No wonder we never encountered him in the anime. He's too busy being bougie and being a battler. Oh, that's so interesting. But Platinum is practicing watching videos of Joanna. Pearl says, meanwhile, Lady is busy studying recordings of past contestants while she practices her dances. The president says, he is making something for the first part of the contest, the visual component. Lady is working on the second part of the contest, the dance competition. Pearl says, so if I work on the third part of the contest, we'll have all three parts ready at the same time. The president says, well said. You don't have much time, though. That's why it's vital that you divide up the work. You are a trio, after all. And Pearl seems to be taking this all in, saying, have you been watching us ever since that fight we had? Oh, when they were talking about when Platinum was complaining about her name and she staked her name and all this. The president says, perhaps. So Pearl looks through the book again, saying, here I go. And so Diamond cooks, Platinum dances, and Pearl studies. And so they hit the scene finally alongside the president. Interesting. Platinum says, yes, I wish to register, please, to the receptionist. While Pearl looks around thinking, all that booing yesterday, and the audience is even trying to hide their low opinion of Lady today. But Lady isn't letting it get to her one bit. She's so poised and gracious like a real princess. Platinum says, this will be my first time performing in front of a live audience. Pearl says, oh. While the president says, break a leg. Let's go find our seats. Pearl says, this is a nice change from getting kicked out of her gym battles while they get to cheer her on. Actually, that's a good point. The idea of gym battles being like, you can't have your friends in at all, like, helping you to any degree is like, that feels so weird to me. And then just like, oh yeah, I guess actually having other people around is kind of weird for gym battles. Oh, is that, yeah, Fantina and, wait, Jasmine? That's Jasmine's hairstyle. What is she doing in this region? Huh, is she participating in Pokemon contests in the Sinnoh region? Huh, how strange. Pearl says, I wonder when Dia's going to show up. This contest is about to start. The president says, He's cooped up in the kitchen, says he's still got cooking to do. Pearl says, cooking to do? I thought he already gave Lady all the poffins he made. The president says, I only know what I told you. Platinum gets a poffin out of her case saying, come on, Primplop, eat up these yummy poffins Diamond made for you. It's weird how whenever she's addressing them, it's just a picture of them instead of their actual name. But as Platinum feeds her Primplop the poffin, we see, of all things, a Pachirisu going for Platinum's case. What's going on? What did that Primplop do? Or, no, that's not a Pachirisu. I've never seen a Pachirisu look so sinister. Oh, was it one of the contestants' Pachirisu? Regardless, during the contest, we see Chertara saying, ladies and gentlemen, presenting today's 4 normal rank cool contest contestants. For our first round, the visual round. Our contestants will dress up and accessorize their Pokemon to match a theme. Oh, the Pachirisu messed with her accessory. Platinum says, I organized my fashion case by theme. There should be a piece of cake. As she looks in, Chertara says, let the contest begin. Contestants, your theme is the intangible. You have 60 seconds. And as Platinum looks in her case, she says, what in the world? And as Primplop is presented, the judges look on. What's this one's name? Jordan? Okay. Jordan says, I love that Primplop sheen. While Kira says, its cool condition is pretty high. While Dexter says, she must have given it a really good puffin. If I were to guess, I'd say it was made with Shuka, Tanga, and Barbary berries. But that's a hard concoction to make. How'd she pull it off? Pearl says, whoa, head Judge Dexter is giving Primplop really high marks, thanks to Dia's homemade poffins, right? The president says, I imagine so, but did you notice anything odd about Lady's behavior? Oh, everything, it just shuffled around everything. Platinum says, the contest thinks to herself, the contents of my fashion case are all jumbled up. Has someone sabotaged me? The other contestants say to, the other entries say to each other, look at her panic, serves her right. Don't stand for a mere child flaunting bigger gems than me. Really? She only entered this contest on a whim. If she actually manages to win, all of Hearthome will be disgraced. Fortunately, today's other 3 contestants are ready and willing to do my bidding. They'll act as my saboteurs. Really? Jeez. Chertara says, what's this? While the other contestants are busy applying accessories, one contestant has stopped dead in her tracks. Half of the 60-second time limit is already gone. Will she be able to rally in time? In the time remaining? Pearl says, did you hear the announcer, lady? What's the matter? Snap out of it, quick. You gotta accessorize Primplop to match the theme. The theme is the intangible. Platinum says, oh, I've got an idea. I'll use that glitter powder I got. Add a flag and a silk veil, and Chertara says, time's up. The judges aren't showing their scores. The totals will be revealed at the end. Pearl says she finished in the nick of time. What's got her so flustered? The president says, it certainly is worrisome. Chertara says, now for round 2, the dance round. We see all the Pokemon just beating down Primplop during all this. Dang! The announcer says, the mysterious sabotage continues into the next round. During the dance, Primplop gets tripped and bumped into. Little by little, these glitches weigh on Lady's confidence. The dance they work so hard to choreograph begins to fall apart. Chertara says, and that ends the second round. 15-minute break, everyone. Pearl says, what's gotten into Lady? And what's taking Dia so long to get here? I'll be right back, mister. While the ladies in the audience say, good job, everyone. Keep up the good work in the third round. Pearl comes up to Lady, who's sitting on a chair while Primplop's kicking a wall angrily. Pearl says, lady, rehearsal time. Let's go over the plan I prepared one more time. Platinum says, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to forfeit the contest. Pearl says, what? Platinum says, I have the strangest feeling that someone is undermining me. Pearl says, so what? I didn't stick with you through all that training just to watch you quit now. Platinum says, it's impossible. I can't do it anymore. Pearl says, fine, see if I care. And he goes racing off. Platinum gets up and holds Primplop's hand, saying, let's go announce our resignation. But in the doorway is Diamond, complete with chef's outfit and everything. He actually looks good in a chef's outfit. He says, perfect timing. I made it just in time for the third round. Platinum says, made it? You mean you came to cheer me on? Well, I regret to inform you. Diamond says, no. I made it just in time to give you something I whipped up in the kitchen. Platinum says, if you're referring to poffins, I already fed one to Primplop, and it's too late to do anything about that part of the judging. Diamond says, no, not a poffin. I made this specially for you. My very own cream pie recipe. Oh, he likes to cook. That's actually very nice. He hands over the little cream pie, saying, well, go ahead, try it. And Platinum takes a bite of it, and as she eats, Diamond says, I know how you must feel. I know how scary it is to be on stage. I've been in lots of comedy competitions with Pearl. It's hard to be up there with all those people staring at you. You get nervous, worried about your routine. You're afraid the audience won't like you. Which, dang, I didn't even think about why they would really care so much, because they always just kind of go with whatever whim she is interested in. But in terms of this makes a lot of sense because they're performers too, which means they can relate. Diamond says, but as long as you're having fun, you can come across to the audience and they'll have fun too. As Platinum is finished, Diamond says, well, how do you like it? Platinum says it's incredible. Diamond tells her sometimes eating something yummy can make everything look brighter. Tasty treats are comforting. That's true. Although sometimes, especially in my case, you can get a little too used to comfort eating. Chertaro announces, the third round performances are about to begin. Platinum says, thanks again for the pie. I'm going out there. And so she heads out, and Primplop does a magnificent bubble beam that wows Dexter as well as the crowd, much to the bougie lady's shock. And as she performs, Platinum thinks, I nearly forgot. I once read something about the origin of these contests. They were originally designed as a chance to share your Pokemon with others, and for everyone to have a good time. The Pokemon were supposed to enjoy themselves. The trainers too. Well, you see Diamond finally sitting with Pearl, who's still a little pissy, while Platinum thinks, that's right, this contest is all about having fun. As we see Primplop use a magnificently shining Metal Claw, Chertaro says, she's done it! Metal Claw! What a stunning move! And the crowd goes wild. Primplop then unleashes a graceful Ice Beam and Peck, and it's wowing the judges. Dexter even says, marvelous. From Bubble to Metal Claw to Ice Beam, taking the air inside the stadium and blowing it out again after jumping over our heads, and then the finishing move, Peck. I gotta say, this is the one element that is presented a little bit better in the anime, because you can see the movement and the graceful, and just, honestly, by this point, they were doing a lot of CG with the moves. Even before in the Ruby and Sapphire part of the anime, they were doing it too. But it shines a little bit better in the anime, but it's not bad here, though. And then the finishing move, Peck. Not only that, Valkyrie says, yes, I see. They're having a wonderful time performing. Chertaro says, the results are in. Which trainer got the highest score? And the winner is blank Brulets and Piplup. It's literally blocked by the crowd going wild. Oh, they're determined not to show off her name. While the lady with the Pachirisu is visibly angry in the background, while the rich ladies in the crowd go storming off, Chertaro says, she's turned yesterday's crowd completely around. What a thunderous applause. Looks like she's won them all over. Everybody's her fan now. While Diamond, the president, and Pearl are all cheering. Diamond says, we did it. Pearl says, all right. And then he says, time for our comedy sketch about winning. Diamond says, okay, Pearl, speaking of contests. Pearl says, what did you win? Diamond says, this. Pearl questions a loop. Diamond shows off his pants saying, I mean this. Pearl says, a belt? I think you mean ribbon, as he bops Diamond. The president says, you two are quite amusing. While the rich ladies exit all in a huff, saying, I feel sick to my stomach. What's it matter if I get all head up about a pathetic normal rank contestant like her? This contest is really all about the ultra rank. Let's go watch the higher level rounds. That'll take our mind off that brat. And we see the master rank contest, where we see none other than Fantina performing. Yeah, I had to look it up. She apparently has a French accent. Okay. See, I know her face, but I don't know too much about her. Oh, she has it in the manga too. Okay. I should have just read. Chertaro announces, as for our Master Rank contest, introducing the alluring soulful dancer. And Fantina poses with her. Wait, it's not a Drifloon, it's a Drifloon. Wait, Drifloon and Drifblim. Okay. She poses with her Drifblim, saying, that is right, everybody. My Pokemon, they are not only dressed cool, cute, smart, and tough, but that they have also the beauty. And as she dances with her castanets, okay, a little bit of that soulful dancing and all that. He says, as a funny feeling that one pair of less than beautiful spectators are in the hall. And her drift blimp comes over to the rich ladies from before who go, huh? What the? And they're flown away and thrown in the trash. And as Fatina dances with her Miss Magius, oh, she has a Miss Magius. That's actually kind of cool. She says, I saw the whole thing. Okay, so she knows all about what had happened. Interesting. Kitaro says, and now to present the award ribbon. Huh? And Platinum takes off into the stands, saying, just a moment, please. He goes over to Diamond and Pearl and brings them to the stage. Pearl saying, hey, what are you doing? Platinum says, I'd like all three of us to receive that ribbon. Dexter questions, all three? Platinum says, yes, because it's all three of us who won it. Pearl questions, what do you mean, lady? Platinum says, this is how I wanted it to be. You two were always outside when I got those gym badges, but not this time. Aw, that's a cute little conclusion. I really do like the fact that Platinum acknowledges that he's only made it this far because of Diamond and Pearl. That she doesn't like the fact that they're left out of a lot of situations because, she's the only one able to compete. Because she wants to acknowledge that they're involved too. I really do enjoy that. That moment with Cynthia, I can't wait till she comes back in. I love the people who just want to jump in and help out because they see the earnest efforts. Cynthia, Gardenia, the Luxray from before, and even the, fan club president. I mean, we've seen that before, but it really also shows that, Pokemon connect people. There's the moments of just being like, I see your effort and I want to help out. But then you also see people like Cyrus, who, and yeah, they were being a little bit rowdy, but actually trying to kill the kids over a disturbance of like, whoa, buddy, a little bit too much. But you can see the makings of how Team Galactic will be involved with our crew. Honestly, it feels like they were going to end up encountering Team Galactic one way or another, because with them traveling around and encountering Team Galactic here and there, especially after that encounter with Mars, I'm really interested in seeing where we go from here on out. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next one. So then, take care. Bye-bye.